Where does the Constitution actually protect the citizen? This is part 2 in a series about courts, the Constitution, and remedies. It's August 2nd, 2026. Welcome to yes2hellwith.com. Yesterday, I posted a video asking a question that many people have never considered before. If you have not seen that video, I encourage you to watch it first. In that discussion, I explained that administrative tribunals and hearing officers generally do not resolve constitutional questions. Their responsibility is typically to administer the statutes, ordinances, or regulations that have been enacted by the governing body that created them. That raises what I believe is a far more important constitutional question. If the Constitution limits government, and if the administrative tribunal says it cannot decide whether government has exceeded those limits, then where does the Constitution actually protect citizens? Let's think about that. Not in theory, not in civics class, not in a campaign speech. In real life, where are the limits of the Constitution applied? Let's use a simple example. Suppose I have a 1977 Ford Pinto. I'm rebuilding the engine and I park it on my front lawn while I work on it. Let's just say that I park it on my front lawn at all times. The city has adopted an ordinance prohibiting automobiles from being parked on front lawns. A code enforcement officer arrives and issues me a citation. Now I ask you this, how is that fundamentally different from a family placing a children's clubhouse in the front yard, or a mother setting up tables and pots and soil and gardening equipment while planting flowers, or children spreading toys across the front yard while they play? Each of those activities involves placing personal property on private property. Each occupies space on the front lawn. Each reflects a homeowner using his or her property. Yet one activity is prohibited by ordinance while the others are generally permitted. Why? What constitutional principle allows the government to distinguish one use from another? More importantly, who decides whether that distinction exceeds the lawful limits of government authority? Suppose I appear before the administrative hearing officer and say, I believe this ordinance exceeds the constitutional limits placed upon government in general and local government. The hearing officer responds, I'm here to enforce the ordinance, sir. I don't decide constitutional questions. So now what? The city enacted the ordinance. The city enforces the ordinance. The administrative tribunal applies the ordinance, and the citizen loses. And the citizen is then told that if he wants constitutional review, he may have to continue through additional proceedings in different venues that could require months or years of litigation and significant expense. Now stop for just a moment and think about what just happened. The Constitution supposedly limits government. Yet the first government institution the citizen encounters tells him it cannot determine whether those limits have been exceeded. That is not an accusation. It's an observation. And it leads to what I believe is one of the most important constitutional questions of our time. Where does the Constitution actually become a practical protection for citizens? Who is responsible for ensuring that government remains within the authority entrusted to it? When does that protection occur? How does an ordinary citizen obtain the protection without spending years and enormous financial resources simply trying to reach a tribunal willing to address the constitutional issue? Because that in and of itself is problematic. These are not political questions. They are structural constitutional questions. Now, the liberty dialogue system teaches not to begin with conclusion. It teaches to begin with the question. So I'm not asking you today to accept my answer. I'm asking you to think about the question. If the Constitution truly limits government, when, where, and through what lawful mechanism are those limits actually enforced in a timely and practical way? Because if the only practical answer is years of litigation after the citizen has already suffered the consequences, then perhaps we should all begin asking whether the constitutional structure is functioning as the framers intended. That is the conversation we're going to continue in the next video. And as always, may truth reign supreme.